So the main reason I wanted to do this is because I wanted to make a video about problem solving with dreams, and as we know, oh, you started on Reddit with that name, okay. As we know, when you anytime if you try to approach a topic, it's tough to know exactly where to start and what the beginning is. So, in order for these videos to make sense in a somewhat chronological sense, I'd like to lay down some of the foundations, as we've all been doing as we go. But, I just figured like the history, take the history back as far as we can, uh, logically, and then try to bring it up into the modern days and apply it. I couldn't talk about problem solving in dreams without talking about how long people have been problem solving with dreams. Uh, so some of the oldest artifacts and records of dreams were written and translated relatively recently, but they come from the Sumerians around 3100 BC. And the fact that something like this can be proven and can be understood and can be known from that long ago, I think when we talk about this, what is the significance of dreams, and like, is it a waste of time to even think about them, or are they something that were conjured up by the devil to try to influence you, or some of that nonsense, like a lot, dreams predate Christianity, and records of dreams long predate Christianity, and whatever types of demons that they might want to associate with it can be definitely outweighed by the historical influence and connection to deities and gods for dreams. There's, every culture has some sort of divine connection with dreams in their mythology. Um, there, I don't think we can get into every individual one. I do have a bunch of notes here, but I feel like it's going to take too long. And the kids don't have probably won't have school tomorrow because I was just driving out there and the roads are nasty. But I still don't want to be here too late all night talking about this. Um, oh, Dee Dee's here. What up, Dee Dee? Okay. I'm sorry I was so late. I had to put air. I was trying to fix my tire, and I had to go get a can of Fix-A-Flat from the gas station, and the roads were nasty. So it took me what should have taken me 20 minutes took me almost an hour. I thought I'd be back here in time, but so so yeah, the Sumerians mentioned dreams way back, 3000 BC. That far back, we know for sure. That's well documented. That's not really up for debate anymore. And what they specifically believed, interestingly enough, what the Sumerians believed was that a piece of your soul, or a piece of your ghost, there's different ways that it's translated from the ancient text, but they believe a piece of your spirit, in some sense, was literally leaving your body and going to another place. And that's what dreams were. They thought it was the soul visiting other places. And that's back to 3000 BC. And then we got the Epic of Gilgamesh mentions dreams. I didn't take that in my notes, but that's something definitely worth mentioning. How many times dreams and prophecies are mentioned in the Epic of Gilgamesh? And then we get into around like 1200 BC, like I was talking about the Egyptian Book of Dreams, and that, again, I made a post about that, and one of them got a significant amount of attention. So I would like to probably make like a good 10, 12-minute video just about the Egyptian Book of Dreams. But that had hundreds of dreams and their meanings and the symbols, and interesting how they had like a little chart, and they would lay out different archetypes, and then they would say whether that means something good or bad. Literally, it was like every dream on a was rated either good or bad in some way. Uh, and again, there's been thousands of Egyptian dreams recorded and scattered in different places. So that's something I've been trying to put together for a while, and I do have a whole separate document on that. Uh, Another interesting thing is that the Egyptians would try to incubate dreams, and they had sacred temples that were dedicated to dreams with beds. It would be like one bed in the center of a temple, and they had a lot of these. And they believed that if you had some sort of problem, you could go there, sleep on that bed in that temple, and it would incubate a dream that would bring the solution to your problem. Of course, they've related it to their religion and to their gods. Mostly was Bez was one of their, not exclusively a dream god, but he was associated with protecting people during sleep and during their dreams. Back in ancient Egypt. So, and those temples that they had, they were similar to sacred sites. I feel like that could be the modern day equivalent to the science lab where they do some of these sleep studies. But I feel like we should give, dreams have more significance than we give them credit for in our modern day. And it's just interesting that such an advanced civilization that far back gave that much attention. They would build these elaborate temples just dedicated to dreaming. um And then you get into the ancient Greeks and the ancient Greeks. I'm sure Jesse, I think I might have heard you talk about this or somewhere recently. I heard someone talking about it. How in the ancient Greeks would sleep in certain temples, and they had shrines built, and they would always hope to be visited by Morpheus, and Morpheus was their god of dreams, um the son of Hypnos, I believe. Morpheus was the son of Hypnos, which is also interesting. Then, I mean, we could get into the Roman mythology too, which they had a lot of, obviously, just a lot of similarities to the Greek mythology. Yeah, you love the myths and histories. Yeah, man. Me too. Me too. And that's why I wanted to get into this. Although, like I said, any one of these things can be picked apart for hours individually. I couldn't go any farther and talk about like modern problem solving and modern studies without at least, paying homage to the history that came before it. So, yeah. Then you get more recently into, well, relatively recently, around the year 350 BC, Aristotle suggested that dreams were related to the body and could be used by doctors to analyze patients and understand the illnesses they had. So I feel like the modern equivalent of trying to, which what we're trying to do is find some sort of medical application for dreams and dream studies. And there's no doubt that dreams can be used for solving almost any problem. And there's a lot of recent scientists, which we'll get into towards the end of this year, that have been studying that. So, again, very interesting that all the way back then, Aristotle thought that they could be used by doctors and medical professionals. Um, we're not going to get into the staff and the serpent and all that. Again, I think Jesse, I think I might have heard you mention that, and you guys were talking about some of the misconceptions with that. That's really interesting, but that's a different kind of well, whatever. Around the same time, around 350 BC, when Aristotle was suggesting that dreams could be used for healing, uh, there was the Chinese philosopher Chang Tzu, who wrote his Dream About the Butterfly, and he was a well-known, renowned philosopher at the time. But he, I don't have it here directly, but you could Google it. Anything about the butterfly dream. Sister, I knew you would really like this story. And I'm gonna share it. Like I'll probably put it up as a post on a picture and just share it because it's a beautiful little anecdote. And I mean, you may have even seen it quoted in memes before. Am I a man dreaming I'm a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming I'm a man? Exactly. Yep. Yep. That was around the same time that Aristotle thought that dreams could be used, for practical healing things. Uh, that that philosopher wrote that his dream about the butterfly, and what happened was he dreamed that he was a butterfly in a field, and this dream felt so real to him. It felt just as real as any type of reality, and he was fully immersed in that dream. So when he woke up, he almost felt like this was a dream, because he felt like that was actually his real life. Uh, yeah, that's a great quote. Thank you, Jesse. You're on point, man. Um, and then there was a great quote by one of Shakespeare's contemporaries. He said, "We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with sleep." That was it's honestly, that quote's usually, a lot of people say that Shakespeare said it, but going a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole, I found out it's often attributed to him, but it was actually one of his contemporaries, and a lot of them get confused pretty often. Uh, and then we get into Beethoven, and the music being inspired by dreams, and this is bringing us more recent up into modern days. Yeah, obviously I skipped a lot in between, and like I said, we could do deep dives on any of that, but Beethoven used to write letters to his family members explaining how different songs were inspired by dreams, and he would usually tell them, whether the song, like some of his more uh anxiety ridden songs, I'm sure we're all familiar with some of them. Those were inspired by nightmares more, and then some of his softer, more melodic songs were inspired by good dreams that he had, and he would explain this in letters to family members, and that's the only reason that we know is from some of those surviving handwritten letters. I would love to read some of them. It's pretty amazing. And then Paul McCartney from the Beatles, which I've mentioned before, but there's more to it. It's just interesting. Like the actual song yesterday. Uh, Paul McCartney said that he had, in his dream, he heard this song, he heard the lyrics and he heard the melody, and he woke up with that song in his head, and he just assumed that it was an actual song. He thought it must be some song that already existed. And he had sang it to some of the other band members, and all of them were like, what is that? And where'd you get that from? And he was surprised that no one had ever heard of it. And then he actually uh he went and he contacted a bunch of different people, and he put it out there, and he checked with all of his friends and different music experts, and he found that the song didn't exist anywhere. It was a completely original song. So obviously he recorded it, but it was entirely inspired by his dream that he had. And then also his song "Let It Be" was inspired by a dream, and a lot of people think that "Let It Be" is a religious song. I thought it was really interesting because, in the beginning he says, "When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me," and he's not talking about the Mother Mary in the biblical sense. He was literally talking about, and this is no nonsense. This isn't like some strange interpretation. This is literally directly his words. Well, not directly, but this is what he said. It was from his mother, who passed away when he was a young teenager, and he would fall asleep and have dreams about her, and she would be comforting him in his dreams. And That's literally what that song "Let It Be" is about. Not that, I mean, the song itself didn't come to him in a dream, but he wrote the song as being inspired by those dreams that where his dead mother was coming to him. It's not about the Mother Mary, it's about his Mother Mary. I thought that was pretty interesting. And then um, in the year 1818, Mary Shelley dreamed the two key scenes of Frankenstein. I know we kind of talked about that before, but obviously Frankenstein is like one of the longest lasting, most well preserved, and uh, most widely known stories in history at this point. And she dreamed the two key scenes, the main scenes, where he was burning down in the building, and when the doctor had made him come alive. She dreamed of those two scenes, and that's what inspired the entire story of Frankenstein. And I think Frankenstein is I don't think it's the gimmick of Frankenstein is kind of taken over the actual meaning of the story, and there's a lot of great undertones in the story of Frankenstein. And just a few years later, Robert Louis Stevenson had a dream about some of the scenes that inspired his book, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And then right around that same time, or maybe a few years, I think, prior to that, uh, August Kekule dreamed of the chemical structure of benzene. And I know I've talked about this before, but not so much the detail of it. Like, well, maybe I think I did mention about the snakes, but it's interesting. At the time, all known molecules were structurally made up of atoms that were in straight lines at a right angle with a right angle side chain. And he spent years thinking about trying to understand the structure of benzene because it didn't seem to fit that structure mathematically. It didn't add up. And this is before high powered electron microscopes and stuff. So he was simply trying to solve these problems with mathematics. And he realized, so he had a dream where there were snakes dancing around in front of him, and then these snakes uh, started to form the shapes of molecules, and the structures of those atoms with those right angle side chains and straight lines. And then as they were dancing, eventually he saw one of them turn around and bite its own tail. One of the snakes looped around, and this made him realize that, and that's the symbol for the Ouroboros, and I've kind of talked about that, and we could get into that separately, um, but he woke up and realized that the chemical structure of benzene was a closed circuit ring. And this was the first known chemical with a closed circuit structure that was ever known. Up to this point, no one had ever known of any. And since then, we've discovered more, and especially with our high powered microscopes, we can actually look and confirm. But at the time, he didn't have that technology, and he actually learned that through a dream. I thought that was really interesting. Didi, what did you say? Maybe not on topic. Do I think the level of consciousness slash awareness fluctuated over the millennia, or is it the same? The continuity of consciousness during sleeping time, lucid dreaming, is considered as a sign of spiritual awakening on the way to enlightenment, and is common to all ages, even if talking about this was repressed by the Christian church. Okay, do I think the level of consciousness slash awareness fluctuated over the millennia, or is it the same? Continuity of consciousness during sleeping time is considered as a sign of spiritual awakening on the way to enlightenment. It's common to all ages, even if talking about this was repressed by the Christian church. Um, I do think that the level of consciousness has fluctuated over the millennia, and I think that it's risen. And I think I've mentioned again before that book, The Celestine Prophecy, where different civilizations have reached heightened levels of awareness and have seemingly dissipated and or somewhat vanished, you know. And I do believe that once you reach a certain point, it is potentially theoretically possible to transcend this physical reality as we know it. I mean, I know that's getting way out there, but maybe that's not even what you're asking, but common to all ages. So, I mean, yes, talking about this was repressed by the Christian church for sure. But yeah, I do think that so recently I heard someone, it was a great quote. Uh maybe not, I can't quote it so well, but he said we might not have to fear AI as much as we have to fear this less than 10% of the population that's able to lucid dream basically on command. And he said these people, if they learn to harness that power, could potentially be the next great superpowers in the world and maybe are some of the highest functioning members of society in the world. Who knows? I mean, maybe reaching that level of achievement is only possible through humble understanding. But you know, I think I'm definitely took it in the wrong direction there. But yes, I do think the level of consciousness slash awareness, and I think you're asking on a collective level, right? Uh, I think do you mean like globally? Because obviously different pockets in different areas fluctuate differently. Um, like America itself, obviously, we had, you know, all through all the turmoil and all things considered, I do think that now is definitely the best time for for this type of thinking to break through. I do think that our level of awareness has got actually, yes, the collective level. Okay, like globally, Um, I do believe that it's actually gone up. I do honestly, like I was talking to someone just the other day who looked at me like I was crazy when I said it, but like the world is getting better. And as much as we see the hysteria um being exemplified so much, it's like there is a lot of great connections going on behind the scenes and in the scenes in the mainstream too, you know, even if it ends up being an overcorrection in that direction, like uh for instance, like, you know, like this new woke movement, you know, I think this new woke stuff has become a joke to a lot of people, and I think maybe that might have something to do with counterintelligence and trying to get people to look at things differently. So you attach so you attach significant understandings with nonsensical understandings to kind of muddy the water. But that's a different topic. But yeah, I do think, and I think like this woke culture is kind of an overcorrection for people being so corporeal for so long, you know, and so trapped in such a physical state for so long, and distracted by the struggle of the physical world around us, you know, and so out of touch with their spirit and their dreams. I think this is kind of an overcorrection for that. Obviously, there was a desperate grab for that, at least in America during the 60s and the 70s, but that got stomped out pretty hard by Reagan and all that. And then I think that we're overcorrecting now, and I think that because, and that's why, like, as much as I despised the internet for a long time and social media, and I always wanted to, everything was about organic connection to me. I do realize the significance of this now, and I do believe that this is and in this specific interpretation of this dimension at this time, from my perception, the internet and all of this is the way for us to build our collective conscious together and to connect, you know, and seemingly magical ways. So and I think the government never really, the governments of the world, all of them didn't really see this coming. They didn't, the good of man will shine through. I truly believe that, I think that the evidence is showing that. I have a book, or I had a book, and I think it was written in like 2015, and it was like predicting the upcoming years, and it said like why the world, it was called Why the World is Getting Better or something like that. And he just went through all the statistical data as well as we can track it, and as much as we do know, and the world is a better place. I mean, there are more charity foundations than ever before. There are less starving people statistically than ever before, and that's like on a not like unquestionable. There's way less starving people in a relative sense than there ever has been in history. uh and I also, I mean, I believe, and the numbers do show, obviously, that these things fluctuate in different areas at different times, but collectively, as a whole, if you look at crime rates around the world, and murder and suicide, and reported depression. Hi, Chelsea. Chelsea's here. What up? Great to see you here. I can't wait to get you back on here. Uh, but yeah, when you look at, like, murder rates, crime rates, depression, suicide, all of that, the numbers have actually gone down. The numbers are all going down. Now, obviously, when throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, uh, throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, when doctors will find a diagnosis for every personality type. So a lot of a lot of the different types of psychological diagnoses were going out, and that's a whole different issue. Meditation over medication. But anyway, like I said, depression, suicide, murder, robberies, all that, on a mass scale, on a collective scale globally, have all gone down. And I think, the news doesn't portray that. And if you scroll through social media and you stop on those crazy stories of hysteria more often, then the algorithm's gonna feed you that more often, and it's gonna seem like the world is getting worse, because you're gonna start to see more and more and more of that the more you watch it. And the algorithm, it's funny, but the algorithm works very similar to how the energy of the universe works, in that it feeds you what you focus on, not always how you expect it to either. So uh and obviously there's exceptions to every rule. It's a very general statement, but the world is getting better, like I said, statistically. And obviously some of the reason for that is like satellite imaging. Like, let's just be real. Like, people can't get away with the things that they used to. You're being watched at all times. Everyone's got a camera out now, and anyone can be put on social media and embarrassed. So a lot of people are, and like I said about the overcorrection before, like, so now maybe people are overcorrecting with that. And like the example of that would be like going out and recording yourself giving something to the homeless, and then posting that on social media. Like, that's the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing. Like, you're trying too hard now. But we're overcorrecting in the opposite direction, at least, and that's definitely a sign of progress. And then hopefully we're gonna eventually meet somewhere in the middle, kind of. Jesse, you said if only people knew how to control their own algorithms, right? Yeah, man. And I mean, I think a lot of people do for the most part. And just like the algorithms of the internet, they can still be, as much as you think you might understand it and as good as you might get with it, you'll still be surprised sometimes. Some things will still be kind of unexplainable and mysterious about the algorithm, and that's also with the algorithm of energy and the algorithm of life. But there are people who understand it, and there are people who write books about it. And let's there's so many examples of that. And that's what a lot of these self-help books are about, one way or another. They're about trying to learning how to understand and manipulate your own algorithm to make your life better. That's that's definitely a metaphor that we could use that I think does apply. And I've never thought about that until now. So thanks for that question, Didi. But yeah, I do believe that the consciousness and awareness is does fluctuate, has fluctuated over the last millennia, and I do think it's like I said, I think it's overcorrecting, and we're trying too hard, and that's where this woke culture comes from, and these hypersensitive people. But that's because people we became so desensitized for so long, and we were so insensitive for so long, and publicly about it. Humans, we were just life was rough. Things were horrible for a long time, and now we're trying to we've got like these all these woke warriors just trying too hard, but it's like I think we're at that phase of overcorrection. That rubber band is stretched all the way to the opposite side of the spectrum as far as it's going to go basically now, and I think we're going to snap back, but not as far to the lower consciousness as we were. I think we'll kind of snap back in between somewhere because there is a lot of pushback against the woke culture now, and I think although people do appreciate the sentiment of it, a lot of it's just not practical. So I think we're gonna find. I think we're. This is like one step. It's like 10 steps ahead too fast, and we're gonna have to take a few steps back. But that'll. I think it's gonna leave us in a much better place consciously than we were in the last 50, 100 years. Honestly. Um. So yeah, we were talking about the structure of benzene, which we've already talked about, and then I wanted to mention because not long after the structure of benzene was discovered verifiably through a dream, Dmitri Mendeleev, and I think this was like 1869, he discovered the layout for the periodic table of elements in a dream, and he was trying to figure out a way to logically order them. Oh, what up, Cliff? Am I Cliff dreaming of being God or God dreaming of being Cliff? Yo, Cliff, you are one of the most vain people. You're too much, man. I appreciate you. What up, homie? Cliff is in the house. Uh, yeah, Dmitri Mendeleev dreamed his design for the periodic table of elements, and he couldn't figure out a way to logically order them so that they would make sense and be easier in like a classroom setting. And then he had a dream where the actual periodic table of elements as we know it today was laid out in front of his eyes in order of atomic mass and a bunch of other ways that they seen that the order actually added up and made sense, logically. Yeah, what up, Cliff? And so he found a great systematic way to do it through his dream, and the elements would fall into place according to the atomic weights. And then that basically brings us up into more modern times, where the Bell Lab engineer Alan Plang dreams his designs for laseroscopic telescopes, or for laser instead of electric based computers. And this actually was a major breakthrough, and this is what has given us our modern cell phones and stuff. Was his and it was and Bell Labs is they do a lot of great studies on some of this stuff, or they did a lot of great studies on some of this stuff, but their main focus is technology, and just the fact that Alan Plang incorporated his dreams with solving the problems of technology and came up with such groundbreaking discoveries that changed the course of our history. We wouldn't have modern cell phones as we know them today if it wasn't for Alan Plang, and the engineer. And for the dream that he had about laser computers, using lasers instead of just the old school electric computers. And also in modern application, Harvard Harvard engineer Paul. This one I didn't write down, but Paul Harowitz. His name's Paul Harowitz, and he's a Harvard engineer, and uh, he anytime he has a problem with trying to come up with a piece for his telescopes, because he designs modern telescopes, he goes to sleep and he dreams on it, and he'll actually keep a notebook by his bed and write down the problem before he goes to sleep, and then he'll wake up with the solution. Some of these are really really complex solutions to some of the angular curvature of the glass and things like that. So, like complex mathematic problems can be solved in dreams, and this was also tested and studied in the 1970s. First, actually, I'd like to talk about how in the 1950s, because that brings us into the basically modern scientific study of dreams, which started in recent times. Not counting like some of the ancient studies, but in recent times, it was really like the 1950s where scientists discovered REM sleep, rapid eye movement, and that's when they started taking it more seriously in the lab. And some of the first studies of brain scans showed that it actually REM sleep wasn't originally called REM sleep; it was called paradoxical sleep. And you know how we're always talking about paradoxes here, so I thought that was pretty cool. But uh, they called it paradoxical sleep because when they first came up with the EEG, the electroencephalograph, and some of these other scanners, they would hook them up to people, and they would witness the brain activity of these people while they're awake. And then when the people fell asleep, just like the scientists predicted, the brain patterns would die out, would slow down and level out more. And there would be like little to no brain activity going on while they were sleeping. But then they noticed after a period of about 90 minutes, all of a sudden the brain activity would pick back up. And so much so to the point where these scientists wouldn't be able to tell if the people were still dreaming or if they were still asleep or if they were awake. So the brain activity was equivalent to the waking brain activity, the level of brain activity, while they were in these dream states in REM sleeping. Now, I also, then you have slow wave sleep, and there's definitely distinctions between the two, and I definitely want to mention the fact that humans are capable and often do dream throughout all stages of sleep, but there are different types of dreams. Then there's even like hypnagogic dreams when you're in that hazy state between awake and asleep. So like, and those are a totally different experience, rooted from the same foundation, but different. Hypnagogic dreams are are fundamentally the same, but also distinctly different than REM dreams. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Then there was dream incubation studies that were done in the 1970s, and yo, Cliff. Okay, never mind then. Uh, these dream incubation studies in the 1970s, they were interesting. They would give these students a problem to solve at the end of the day, and then the next day they would ask them if they solved the problem, and the more that they did, they would do this over a long period of time, and the more that they did it, the more that the kids would start to remember their dreams, and then eventually it got to the point where like it was like 80 something percent of them were able to, or 80 something percent of them said that they had a dream about the problem. And then I think it was like 7% of them actually had a dream that solved the problem. So they woke up with the solution to that problem. And so now we know that because of the way, and you can also see it when people are dreaming nowadays with modern technology. You can see that the way that the prefrontal cortex is working when they're in these stages of sleep. Um, you know, like logical problem solving. A lot of it having to do with more physical, like I know uh, engineers have more trouble than like poets, obviously, but that's a different conversation. But you know, fMRI scans show that the parts of the brain associated with visual processing are active when we're dreaming. So a lot of, you know, that's why painters and stuff can be inspired by dreams. And they, you know, they did these other studies where like they would they, you know, that basically this has been done over hundreds of different subjects separately from different labs in slightly different ways, but the gist of it is that like they'll basically teach these kids something in the early on in the day, and then test them on that at the end of the day. And then, you know, they'll take another large group of people, they'll teach them something at the end of the day, and then test them on it early the next morning after they've slept on it. And after doing this, you know, many times, hundreds, maybe even thousands, with thousands of different people, you know, different groups over a long period of time, they notice that the subjects that learn something at the end of the day and then sleep on it and take the test the next morning perform drastically better than the students who learn it in the morning and then get tested on it later on that day without having the chance to sleep in between. So it's also been observed in like back before GPS and stuff in London cab drivers, how they, when they would go to sleep, the neurons would fire off in their brain in the exact same order and directions that they would when they were awake driving through the streets of London. And the more that they worked with these London cab drivers, some of these experiments are really interesting, how they've come to some of these conclusions. But and I could do a whole separate thing about that. But these London cab drivers who are notorious for understanding the layout of the streets of London, the complex streets of London, you know, without a map, you know, they have the map in their head. And you know, they would have them hooked up to these things during the day while they're driving, and then they would, you know, they would take note of the fluctuations of brain activity and the different neural patterns, and then they would, you know, hook them up while they're sleeping at night and notice that these London cab drivers were recreating a lot, not all the time and not in every dream, but a lot of them, most of the time, were recreating these dreams in their heads. So it's, you know, it's safe to assume that like these dreams were, and I don't think this is the only thing that dreams are for, and we've talked about it before that this is one of the modern theories of dreams. I think it's just one of the many reasons we dream, but it's our brain trying to process things throughout the day and sort out, you know, memory consolidation processing, and sort out the things we don't need and then help us better understand the things we do need, because nobody understands something after only seeing or hearing about it just once. So, you know, they believe that our dreams are helping us solidify the important things in our memory that we think, you know, that we categorize as more important, that we give more significance to. So yeah, those London cab drivers would basically be having dreams of, and some of them were in different ways. Some of them would literally dream of maps, and then some of them would just have dreams, you know, of driving their cabs in different scenarios, and a lot of different variations of that. But I thought that was interesting. And then like then you get into more modern studies by like Matthew Walker, Andrew Huberman, Deidre Barrett, and a lot of different universities that are making some incredible groundbreaking discoveries about dreams. And I will get into that in some of the upcoming videos. So that has brought us up into modern day studies. And you know, especially well, I had to give a shout out to Stephen LaBerge, obviously, too, because his book, how I think exploring the world of lucid dreaming. Sorry, my girl's texting me. Exploring the world of lucid dreaming is that book inspired me. Wait, let me hit her back. She keeps hearing noises. Hmm. I don't know. Maybe we got some kind of critter in the house. I don't know. Uh, yeah, exploring the world of lucid dreaming. I mean, I'm sure. Okay, Dee Dee, you said you're going back to bed. You have to go to work in 3 hours. Bless your soul. Great to see you too. Thank you. You're watching the replay. Okay, cool. Goodbye, Dee Dee. Thank you. Yeah, I mean that was a quick rundown of basically what I wanted to talk about, and well, I don't even know. I can't see what time it is. Okay, 10:30. Not too bad. Hmm. Well, that's interesting. Okay. All right. Well, I think I'm gonna have to go inside soon. I might have to wrap this up. I don't know. She said she thinks she hears someone walking around downstairs, but all the kids are upstairs. So I don't know. But it's all good. It's all good. Um, Jesse, I definitely want to get in the Dream Dojo. Chelsea, I definitely would love to get you back up here. Still working on getting. I might download this streaming app. What is it called? I think it's called Riverside, and it's supposed to be free and it's supposed to work pretty well. So the format of these lives might somewhat change up a little bit, but I got the dog over there. He's snoring, making all types of funny noises. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. That's uh I'm also excited to get Dr. Tula up here and a few more. It's gonna be a lot of fun. The future will be fun. And I'm sorry I was so late tonight, but you know, hopefully I'll make it on time next week. I have now next week I want to specifically the topic's going to be problem solving in dreams and some more practical applications and practices that people can use in their everyday life to solve problems in dreams. And this was fun. In the meantime, everyone, ooh, I am uploading all the live sessions to my YouTube. So you could expect to be seeing me post about that, sharing the link. Anyone who sees that can go over and subscribe. That'd be cool. And do I think dreams are repressed by the powers that be because of their potential? Um, do I think it's possible? Of course. Do I think it's likely? Yes. Do I 100% believe that all of the powers that be are consciously repressing dreams because they're aware of their potential? Not so much. But who am I to say? I think it's possible, but I think that at this point I really believe the majority of the powers that be have been grandfathered into the system that's so diluted that even I mean I understand that they have like a lot of the higher knowledge and all that, but I think even their information has been diluted and manipulated so much to this point that I think a lot of them probably don't even understand the significance of their own dreams. Maybe some of them do, but I don't necessarily believe that, only because the majority, as far as I can tell, you know, I don't know, man. Let me actually, maybe I should think more before I start talking about that. Let me actually think about this, because uh, I mean, I have thought about it in fleeting thoughts, but I do believe there might be something to them trying to suppress information surrounding the pineal gland and DMT. But dreams specifically, I really don't think so, because a lot of the major scientific breakthroughs have been, I haven't seen them. Hmm, let me think about this. On a subconscious level, like, hmm, I don't know, man. That's, I'm gonna have to think. I'll get back to you on that. I'll get back to you. I think, because I truly believe at this point, the powers that be, I think, have gotten scattered, and more recently, as of recently, and are less unified than a lot of the conspiracy theorists. And I don't use that word loosely, but a lot more scattered than a lot of people believe. Hmm, I don't know, man. That's I think potentially dreams maybe. I th- I mean, I think obviously dreams were repressed by the church, obviously, for a long time, and they always like would relate them with devilish practices. Although like dreams in the Bible were very significant, and and inspiring and all that. A lot of times, like, generally, someone who is involved in like the dream interpretation space would be more lumped into the new age category and frowned upon by a lot of traditional uh Christians. But the powers that be, like, if we're talking, what level, like at the highest level, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. Are we talking like Freemasons? Woke is a good example. Right, right. And that's that Orwellian slips that they use, to, yeah, you're right, man. Maybe, like, maybe, but I don't know, man. I don't know. It's definitely possible. I hate to believe that, but like, from the conspiracy perspective, yeah, it does make sense. I just I have trouble believing that it's been done intentionally and consciously on a wide scale. But yeah, I think in pockets, certain powers that be are repressing dreams because they understand their potential. I guess, yeah, I do believe that. But these scientists are making major breakthroughs, and ain't nothing stopping it. And the more they discover, the more it points towards the significance of dreams. And I really think clinical dream therapy is right around the corner. You understand why I'm hesitant to believe that? I'd rather believe that we control our own fate also. However, there's always external influences. Yeah, yeah, there's definitely external influences. I would never deny that. Uh, yes, it's just, do I think that they're organized and unified collectively, and still recently their interest is focused on repressing the our understanding of the potential of dreams. No, not so much. I think that they're more scattered and less organized than we tend to believe, because only because I've seen that on every level. You know, it's almost like when you're a kid, you think that grown-ups got it all together, and then you realize like they don't have this shit figured out nearly as much as we thought. And same with like the schools and the teachers, and then you grow up and like, you know, some of the people I graduated with are teachers now, and it's like you see them from a whole different perspective. Like they're not really the ultimate authority in the sense that we believe them. And then the same goes for like police, and you know, you if you like see behind closed doors, you know, at the police station, like you see different sides of them, and you see that they're not quite as organized and together as they make themselves seem. And same with religions and, you know, people of high power. I think that goes all the way up the chain, and you know, even like a major corporation like Walmart, you know, because I work in the warehouse now, and I've been there for a few years now, and like you would think that like a major corporation like that would have it together a little bit more, and would understand what they're doing, and obviously they do in ways, but like there's a lot more shooting from the hip than people realize with things like this, and a lot, you know, a lot less structure than people realize. And I think the same goes all the way up the chain, you know, depending on your perspective and how you choose to look at it. Like if you don't believe that there is not a higher level in on the totem pole in the hierarchy that goes above the government collectively, and that they have super powerful organizations around the world that are trying to influence us to keep us from taking their power. If you don't believe that, then I think that you really like you could be in for a huge awakening, because I think there's no doubt about that. But if you think that is ultimately collective and powerful, and ultimately unified and organized, I don't think it's quite that uh, you know, that black and white. I think there's a lot of scattered grays in between for sure. So so what I'm hearing is stop blaming the PTB and take responsibility for our own community. Powers that be. Uh yeah. Yeah. To a certain extent. I mean, it's tough, dude. I could go back and forth. Like I'll just sit here and argue with myself all night, you know. But cuz like I think it's definitely important to acknowledge the injustices and the manipulation by the powers that be. I think we should definitely question, always question, and always seek more answers from them, and don't accept anything they say at face value. But you know, I mean, a lot of my music is straight up just like, you know, calling out some of that stuff. So, but yeah, that can go too far, and again, that can be overemphasized, and yes, that can choose us. That can cause us to make the choice to take some of the responsibility away from us. So I think it's about finding that balance between understanding how much you're getting influenced and how much you're allowing yourself to be influenced. I think that is like the important balance to try to find in life. And I'm not saying I got all the answers, but like from what I've observed, that seems to make the most sense to me. You know, like when you say someone made you feel a certain type of way, like no one can really make you feel any type of way, but at the same time they do. Like if they didn't do that or say that, then you wouldn't have felt that way. So like trying to control it, and you don't want to be completely insensitive to what someone says. So if someone does something to you, or around you, or says something that makes you feel a certain type of way, is that yourself, just being overly susceptible and easily influenced, or are you just a human having a human experience and having a logical reaction? I think being a human in nature, being a mammal, being this physical being, it's important to understand the significance of reacting to external influences, but it's also important to understand the power that you have individually in creating your own influence and counteracting that in with a conscious choice, and that comes from the higher human perspective, the more transcended perspective. So, finding a balance between the two without being completely oversensitive or completely insensitive is I think that's the beauty and the fun part of being a human. Getting too engulfed in either one on either side in either direction is what can cause, all types of problems, whether it's depression and multiple personality disorder, schizophrenia, or just some people get trapped in euphoria, so too many guilty pleasures and whatever. That's a different conversation for another day. So yeah, man. Thank you, Jesse, for your questions. That was fun. I don't always mean to go off on those rants, but um, I'm gonna call it a night. This has been fun. Usually I make these a little bit longer, but I gotta get in there. She messaged me and I don't know. Says she thinks she hears someone walking around downstairs, but I'm the only one down here, and I'm out in the garage and I'm not walking around. So I'm gonna go check that out. But it's all good. We're good. Our house is definitely in a private enough area. I love it. I'm grateful. Uh, it's been fun, everyone, and I hope y'all enjoy yourselves. Thank you, Jesse. Peace. You be safe as well. Sweet dreams. Um, I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like there was something else I wanted to say that I wanted to tell people, but I'll throw it up in the post if I remember it. Oh yeah, well, I got a song with Peter Leo, an old song that was deleted off of my YouTube that no one's heard in a long time, and most people haven't heard it at all. And I will be posting that song tomorrow. So thank y'all. Uh, peace and love, sweet dreams, all that good stuff.